Welcome inside episode 605 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, and the results are in. Yesterday we asked, are the Sens a playoff team as they're built today? And you answered, Pillsy already has his, but what do you think the results are among the listeners?
It's going to be interesting to find out, and a lot of listeners are saying it depends on if they acquire a right shot top four defenseman. Some of those options are no longer available. We'll take a look at who is still available and who might be a good fit for the Sens to go after.
All that and more coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Wednesday, July 20th. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to like the videos by clicking the thumbs up, subscribe to the Locked On Senators channel, and leave a comment below. The question we want to know today is, how do you improve the Senators' defense? There were so many names being thrown out there, but one by one, they've either become less likely in terms of Mackenzie Weegar. I just don't see it with 1 year left on his contract and playing for a contender, or they've already been traded, like John Marino. We had that debate on Friday. Pillsy, where are you at with this Sens decor as it is right now?
Well, I mentioned a few times, I still think probably the best route is for the Sens to try to open things up and really make a push for a top four defenseman at the trade deadline. That's when the market shifts, things change, and that's when the Senators are going to know, hey, are we in a position to really go for it, or are we not quite ready to push things in here? But I'll never say it's a bad idea or fault anyone for saying, hey, let's shore up that defense as soon as possible, because yes, that does make the most sense, but the options are dwindling. The market seems to be cooling off, and other than Klingberg, Ross, there's not any UFAs that really move the needle as far as a right shot top four D go. So I think Sens fans are going to have to be patient here, but we will take a look at some possible options that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a common denominator here in the replies we just asked on Twitter at Sens Central. You can follow the show there. How would you improve the Sens decor by opening night is the key word there, and removing Zaitsev seems to be addition by subtraction when it comes to this whole group. But we will look into more trade or free agent possibilities when it comes to the Ottawa Senators a little later on today. We also have to give Rick Westhead gave an update in the Hockey Canada Gong Show, I'll call it, because this should have all been taken care of in 2018-19 after the disgusting alleged sexual assault, rape, you could even call it took place in the hotel room at the banquet celebrating the 2018 World Junior Championship. No names have come out, but there are some more details that we'll get to a little later on. But I want to go back to the poll that we put up, the one I teased in the intro, and that is, are the Senators a playoff team as it stands right now? As it stands right now. And Pillsy, great radio yesterday. And I mean, for a show by fans, for fans, maybe it was, but we both said yes. We both came up with the same conclusion. We took different paths to get there, but the majority agrees. 69% of 2,000 voters are saying that yes, as it stands today, yesterday, the Senators are a playoff team. 70 responses, though, and I have a feeling a lot of those responses are from the 30% that said, no, guy, they're not there yet. They need to improve the decor. They need to make sure that they can get off to a better start. I think that the start is more important than the decor. Maybe they go hand in hand. If you have better defense, you have a better chance of starting well. But last year, you can blame the decor for a couple of those losses, but that was just top to bottom unacceptable play at the start of last season and the year before. 4 wins back-to-back in their first 20 games. It's crazy.
I think the decor was the main issue, though, Ross, because we look at it, and I know we're a goalie-friendly show, and we tend to sympathize with goalies, but a lot of the goals that were happening early in the season, it was like what do you want these goalies to do? Like, guys are wide open. No one's having trouble scoring on rebounds or deflections when they're playing the Ottawa Senators, all these kinds of things. Like, it's just too easy for the other teams to get in good scoring spots, and goalies can only do so much. So I really thought that was an issue. However, I think when sometimes the best defense is good offense, right? And the Senators have bolstered their offense. So you're hoping that they're going to be playing with the puck in the O-zone, playing with the puck in the O-zone a lot more often than they were last year because of bringing in DeBrincat, bringing in Giroux, and all those young stars are a year older with more experience. That should help out for sure. Where I think, I kind of think before the Sens make a big splash on defense, why not see what you've got here? Because again, you take Zaitsev out of the equation, addition by subtraction, that should help out defensively. Let's give Travis Hamonic a little bit more time. I thought he fit in nicely here. Now, am I saying he's the savior and he's the piece that completes this top 4D? Not at all. But I'm saying let's give him a chance. Let's see how it goes. Jake Sanderson is now into the picture. Let's see how he starts off. Will he be able to transition into the NHL easily? Is he going to struggle? There's so many things that I would like to see how things fall into place before using assets to acquire someone that maybe you don't need, or maybe you don't need just quite yet. So for me, I'm really of the mind that if they're going to go big game hunting, I think they should wait. And I think at least let's see what you got here, because there's so many new variables. No Zaitsev and Sanderson in the equation here. And I think Eric Brannstrom in a lesser role could be more effective. So I would really like to see how things shake out before making a big move here.
And the X factor in all this is you've invested in 2 first-round picks on the right side of the decor. In 2018, it was Jacob Bernard-Docker. In 2019, it was Lassie Thompson. At some point, one of them, you think, would have to hit to be able to play a full, if not partial part, or like the beginning part of an NHL season. I know they both got a taste at different points last season, and I thought that as their game matured, JBD, his first game, he didn't want to touch the puck. Like, that was apparent. But by the end of it, he was calm. He was able to evade a forechecker and make the little outlet play, the safety outlet to his partner. So I'm hoping that one of those guys can come in. Like, they're 22 and 23 years old, Pilsy. Keandre Miller is an established NHL vet. He went like 2 picks before JBD. And I understand that JBD's game is about size. It's about control. It's about being physically mature to angle guys into the corner. He's just going to be a steady defensive defenseman. And he doesn't have the 6'5" frame that Keandre Miller has that can kind of, the reach just alone can carry him in terms of being able to be a stout defensive player. But for JBD, like, you're drafted 5 years ago. Like, at this point, like, let's go. Let's see you have a big summer and come into camp. You're touted as Shabbat's partner. Like, Shabbat's got 6 years left on his contract. I mean, is he going to be ready by the time it's done? Obviously, I say that tongue in cheek, and he took some great steps last year, but I think it's kind of like go time for those 2 first-round picks.
I'm a little more conservative. I think they both could use a little bit more time in Belleville. As it stands, I've got Lassie ahead of JBD right now. I'm not saying he projects to be a better player or anything like that. I'm just saying I think both of them could benefit from spending more time in Belleville. And again, I think you should see what you've got from this decor before, I was going to say forcing, that's not the right word, before kind of pushing JBD or Lassie into the NHL and kind of being like, okay, like we need you to step up here or else it's not going to happen for us. So I think both of them, they've got a year of flexibility here, but yes, I hear what you're saying. There's other guys that have been drafted in similar spots that are already thriving. But I do think a little bit more patience is needed there before we really see. Because I would rather JBD be ready to be a top 4 defenseman next year rather than force him to try to be ready this year and it stunts his development.
I mean, at some point, like, development only takes you so far, right? But I mean, come on,
he's barely had a full year in the pros, right? Like, that's
58 games this past season.
That's what I'm saying. That's barely
full. Yeah,
barely a full year. So I think he deserves a little bit more time to work on his game at the professional level.
Sure. Yeah. So do you think Lassie should be ahead, even though he's a year younger?
Yeah, I just think that where their games are at right now, Lassie projects to be able to play his style of game sooner in the NHL rather than JBD projects to play his style of game in the NHL. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think Lassie could succeed as a bottom pair kind of guy that can move the puck, play well defensively. Whereas JBD, we're really hoping that he can excel and one day get to a point where he can play alongside Shabbat. And I don't think he's ready for that yet.
Well, the beauty is they've got a buffer with Travis Hamonic and with Nick Holden, a guy we hadn't
Yes,
mentioned.
exactly.
So, as I scroll through the replies here for those watching on YouTube, what would be your ideal? Let's say no additions come in, but we will touch on after the break some free agents that are still available to be had. But how would you set up the D pairs right now going into training camp? You're DJ Smith. You're sitting there. You're trying to be like, okay, who's playing with Shabbat? How do you have your top six working out?
Yeah, so I've got it here. I've got Shabbat playing with Hamonic. I think Shabbat is a good enough defenseman that he should be able to ride with anyone not named Nikita Zaitsev. So I think Hamonic should be an improvement there. Sanderson, get him on the left side and have Zub on the right side. We've said it so many times. Zub is able to make any defense partner he's with feel comfortable and really elevate their game. Then on the bottom pair, you got to have Nick Holden in the lineup here. He's such an important penalty killer. He's a great defensive player. And on the right side, I got Eric Brannstrom. I think in a lesser role, Brannstrom has a chance to succeed here. And when you have someone that's so strong defensively like Nick Holden, I think that can work. So Shabbat, Hamonic, Sanderson, Zub, Holden, Brannstrom is how I would have the lineup opening night.
Nice. Okay, that's great. I'm hoping that JVD comes in and knocks the door down in training camp and gets a little sniff in the top six. But other than that, yeah, I'm kind of all right with Branny being a bit of a floater, but I don't mind if it's Branny Hamonic on the bottom pair. I know our buddy Caleb here's got Shabbat Lassie, so he sees Lassie coming in and taking a top two spot. I know it's a lot of pressure,
but that's a lot of pressure. I would love to see it. Do I think Lassie's ready? Not quite sure.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the common denominator, and you hit it too, is Sanderson and Zub together.
Yeah.
Just makes so much sense on so many different levels here coming up. And coming up on this show, we're going to talk about the available options in free agency. Of course, there's one big left in the defensive market. And then are there any guys scouring around depth charts around the league that could be valued in trade outside of the obvious ones like Jacob Chikrin that we've spent weeks, months, it feels like years discussing on this show? All that coming up after Pilsy shares a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Ross, if the Sens are able to acquire a top four right-hand shot defenseman, I'm going to be putting a lot of shekels on them night in, night out on betonline.net because the Senators, they're going to be scoring goals. I'm going to be betting the over a lot. And to find out what those odds might be, there's no better spot than betonline.net. It's the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spots for your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just hockey, guys. You got basketball when it's back up, baseball, UFC, boxing, golf, whatever you need, they got it. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Guys, it's betonline.net where the game starts.
All right, you're listening to Locked On Senators. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller. You can find us 5 days a week throughout this week right here on Locked On Senators. A quick programming note here as it's now halfway through. This will be our final week of season 3. Season 3 of Locked On Senators. And that doesn't mean that we're going away for the summer. Nah, we can't stay away like that. But what we will do is go down to 3 shows a week. It's going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we've already got the calendar rolling. We know what we're doing each and every show. And a part of it will be our organizational value rankings. Pilsy and I made our list. We checked it twice. And the coolest part now, Pilsy, now that it is season 3, we've got a trend of how these players have either improved or fallen in terms of where we've ranked them.
Yeah, that was a fun exercise. Ross and I spent, 2.5
An hour and a half,
hours. Yeah,
sure.
something like that. Organizing
All day.
our list. Yeah, all day grinding. But we spent a good chunk of time going over the 64 players in this organization, where they fit. And what we did is we organized them into tiers and then rankings throughout those tiers. So throughout the rest of the off season, I'm not sure when are we kicking off organizational value rankings? Did we decide? Soon. So
and I can confirm that before training camp, Pierre Dorion will be on Locked On Senators. I have that confirmed right now before training camp.
All right. Well, that's one hell of a confirmation. And what better time to get Dorion on than hot Pierre summer here, because he has been wheeling and dealing and making great moves. So I'm fired up about that. That's breaking news to me here. So that's great. And yeah, the organizational value rankings are a lot of fun because it kind of makes you rethink, okay, where does this guy fit in the organization? How do they see him? What's his value? And that's the exercise we're doing. So get ready for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're pumping up Sens Central Citizens again. We got to get back into that. It's been a long time since we've done that. I think our last one was Jonas Sogard, wasn't it?
It was. It was. The absolute beauty. But I think we're going to make it a specific day of the week, like Wednesdays. It feels good on a Wednesday, I think. Get the fan energy involved. So every Wednesday, there's going to be a Sens Central Citizen.
And that's our plan, is when we go to 3 shows a week starting next week, the plan is to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Things may change, but we're going to try to keep things regular for you guys so you can have them on your routine. So when you're doing your dog walks on Monday, you've got an LOSP episode ready. When you're making the drive to the cottage on Friday, you've got LOSP ready for you. So that's our goal, and we just want to make that clear so you guys on a Tuesday aren't like, where's the episode? What's going on?
Where is it? Just start getting the itches going. Yeah, no doubt. I'm still dealing with some itches right now. Man, COVID sucks, but this stuff's even worse. I got the old foot, hand, and mouth virus. It just sounds awful too. Not fun.
Yeah, not
fun.
great.
We're grinding through.
Yeah, Brandon Piller, not a doctor, but I can tell you that's not great.
Can you see the little dots there?
Damn. No one said podcasting was easy, Ross.
It's my flu game right now, but we're battling through, and we appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. The growth of the show has been nothing short of phenomenal, outside of my wildest expectations.
Which are wild.
Which are wild to begin with, but we're grinding through to make sure that we are the premier hockey podcast covering the Ottawa Senators, and the I think people are realizing that the fact that we do this 5 days a week, they know that when there's news revolving around the Ottawa Senators, we're going to be here. And that's to say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If there is breaking news, as always, we will record a quick segment and we'll put it exclusively up on our YouTube. So if the Sens ever make a move, it will be covered on the Locked On Senators YouTube page. That is our promise to you, the listener, who we appreciate so much. We love you guys and
the viewers.
Absolutely. We are working our darndest to plan the home opener. I'm hoping to have confirmation by the end of this month. So how's that for one of the 3 shows?
You told me 95% chance. So I'm broadcasting that and making it public. 95% chance Ross is able to make it. So
100%. Wait, it's 100% that it's 95%.
Okay.
All right. What do you say we get back to our discussion surrounding potential options for the Ottawa Senators defensive structure and the story nobody wants to talk about, but everyone has to, because it really is flipping the hockey world on its back and uncovering some dirty, dirty secrets. All that coming up here right after a quick break on the Locked On Senators podcast. All right, Pilsy. So Rick Westhead, his latest article, you can find it on tsn.ca. Lawyers for the players linked to the alleged sexual assault will give the NHL videos and text messages, and those text messages are available in their entirety in this article from Rick Westhead. It's a 35 message back and forth between the victim and one of the unnamed players involved in the sexual assault that occurred the night before. So basically, they were out, they were drinking. The one girl wanted to come back with the one guy, from what I can gather here. But then 7 other players came into the room. And obviously that changes the whole dynamic and consent goes out the window or has to be re-given. It's honestly just kind of disgusting that that's how everything kind of devolved into. But the next day, the text messages start, and we're not going to sit here and read each one. Again, as we've done through this whole thing, Pillsy, like, go read Rick Westhead's reporting. Take it for gold. Like, this guy does his work. He's he's been doing this for a long time, and he's helped a lot of people uncovering some serious issues in and around the game.
Yeah, and we're not about to sit here and speculate who is involved, who has done what, fully what has happened.
And I get that we live in a world where it's like you want answers and you want them right now. Like, think about, obviously different circumstances, but on like free agency day, you're refreshing. Like, what's next? Like, I need to know. But sometimes it's better to know once and know for sure than know, and every time a player puts out a vaguely worded statement, like the photo, some people are posting a photo and like scratching off guys who've made a statement. Like, that's not it. Wait until the names will come out. Like, Rick Westhead is not going to sleep, I don't think, until the names come out. So I think it's very important to wait until that, because the only thing you're going to do is potentially look like an asshole if you got the wrong guy. The names will come out.
And the thing is, there's a legal process that needs to be gone through thoroughly here. And that takes time, and say what you want about the system, but that's what's going on right now. Is there's a full investigation opened up again, and there's a legal process that has to happen. I think what I want to highlight about and what I want to talk about is the issue with Hockey Canada here. And it's such an issue. Justin Trudeau is talking about it, and it's a national thing at this point, because how many hundreds of thousands of kids play hockey with Hockey Canada, pay their registration fees. Ross, you and I did that growing up.
Yep.
We did that. And to now know that part of our parents' hard-earned money to allow us to play a game we love, part of that is purposely being put into a fund, not if, but when sexual assault cases come up, when they happen, this can be solved. And the issue here is, my understanding is a lot of massive corporations and companies, they have these types of funds set aside. But those funds are set aside for emergencies, acts of God, things that cannot be expected or changed, so that when disaster or tragedy hits, at least you got something set aside here to focus on that. What Hockey Canada has done here is they've set aside money, assuming and knowing that these things will happen. And their solution is, hey, all right, these sexual assaults have happened. We figured this was going to happen. Good thing we've been stashing away money so that we can pay off the victims, and this can all be hush-hush. And that's what they tried to do. And that's simply unacceptable, because that just further propels the toxic environment that is junior hockey. And Ross, I mean, you grew up in a city with a junior team. So did I. I went to high school in the Guelph area, and the way that junior hockey players present themselves and the kind of invincible feelings that they have about themselves is disgusting, honestly. Like, they think they can walk around and do whatever they want because they're a junior hockey player, and everybody just bows down to them and the rules don't apply to them. And that simply can't happen. And for Hockey Canada to have money set aside, being like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, but we'll be ready for it, and we can pay big dollars to hush it up rather than try to solve the problem, cannot be the case anymore. And that's why it's so important that this is being blown open and that everybody sees. When, like, there are parents out there working 2 jobs, full-time job, like full-time hours to get their kids to play hockey. And part of that money is being put towards Hockey Canada hushing up sexual assaults acts. Like, I'm getting like really emotional just talking about it, because that's such an issue. And that's the problem with hockey culture is hockey culture in the hockey industry is just accepted. This is the culture we have, and we have ways to deal with it. You can't wait for the problems to happen and then have easy solutions. You need to work hard on finding ways to stop those problems from happening. That's what the new process has to be. And that money in that fund should be going. And Hockey Canada put out the letter saying they're going to do more education, more kind of workshops with players, teaching them about the issues with this. And that's where the money should be going, to try to prevent these problems, not to try to cover them and sweep them under the rug when they happen.
Yeah, well said, Pilsy. And I think the key is that this is such an amazing game, hockey. Like, obviously, we love it to no end. It just sucks when you hear that it's being either taken advantage of, as you said, just kind of like the arrogance that kind of came along with these kids being, and not the kids, you know what I mean, like in generalization there. But let's put it this way: that one situation in that hotel room in London, that's not the only time that an uncomfortable situation has occurred because of the culture surrounding what these kids are brought up believing. And then when it comes to Hockey Canada, like I feel for the family, obviously the victim. I feel for the families of all of these hockey players who are paying to have their money be funneled into an account where, what if they have a son and a daughter? They're paying for the son to play, and then something happens to their daughter. They're literally paying to help cover up a crime against their own. Obviously, that's kind of minimalizing it, but this is it's a big issue, and it deserves attention. And the names will come out, and then they will be judged accordingly when they do. Again, we point everyone to Rick Westhead's reporting for more on this, and Katie Strang. But I think Rick Westhead with TSN is really doing the most when it comes to uncovering this whole situation and story. So we point people in that direction. No easy transition to get off of that, but we do want to touch on the free agents available for the Ottawa Senators, especially on the back end. And we had a name thrown out to us, so I'm going to start there. PK Subban is an unrestricted free agent. We know that he's not the $9 million PK Subban that his contract dictated over the last number of years, but is he somebody that you would take a flyer on a 1-year term? Prove it, buddy. $2 million?
I don't think we're there yet. And this is nothing against PK Subban. I don't see
he
that.
Still gets booed in Ottawa from his time in Montreal.
I mean, he was a part-time lumberjack in that playoff series when he slashed Mark Stone.
Tried to fight Kyle Turris, or did fight Kyle Turris. Not a fan.
So I see where the mindset is there, but I don't think because do you like, is PK Subban that much better than Travis Hamonic? Like maybe marginally, but.
You've got all your offensive weapons on the left side. Like, I feel like you really want to make sure that the guy you're bringing in is a solid defensive defenseman.
Agreed.
And that's never been PK
or
Subban,
at least more of a two-way guy, right?
Yes.
So,
but he's never been
there
that.
Yet. No, and that's fine. It's just it's not the fit.
So, defensive defenseman, hey? How about Anton Stralman? Is he a little over the hill? If he was 30 years old, I would bring him in right away. Agreed. Like, I thought he's been a really good player throughout his career. But now going into a 36-year-old season, I don't know. I don't know.
He's on the back nine, and he can smell the burgers being grilled at the clubhouse here.
You can see the clubhouse for sure. He's coming down 18.
Yeah. So, again, not a bad option, just not the right timing and not the right fit.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a common theme here as we're going through the list of unrestricted free agents here on defense. I guess we have to mention John Klingberg, but both of us were pretty cold on Klingberg.
It's going to be an overpayment, and he's looking for the contract of a lifetime here. Like that.
Well, he sees the other options. He's like, hey, do you want to upgrade your defense, or do you want one of these guys?
Exactly. And he took, that deal he was on before was crazy. I think it was 6 years at $4.5 million or something. Like, he was getting underpaid massively for a long time. So he's looking
past time to get paid.
Yeah, he's looking to really use his leverage as a UFA and try to get a big contract here. Some people mentioned, why don't you bring him in on a 1-year show me deal? Klingberg would never, I don't get that feeling that he would ever go for that. Yeah. And again, he's an offensive guy. We're looking for someone with two-way, more defensive ability on that right hand side.
So the other name here that I can point to, and please do not bring in Danny DeKaiser. Please do not. Johnny Boychuk, I'm pretty sure is retired. No,
He's got to be. Yeah, I think he was even playing in Germany more recently than the NHL, right?
not sure, but I could tell you the last time he remembers being at the CTC was probably when Chris Neal and him collided. One of the biggest hits,
Yeah.
maybe all time. But we can't talk about the Sens decor potential options without touching on Calvin de Haan, who's a Cart native building a forever home in Manotick. The local connection is one thing. He's also one of the younger players on this list, only 31 years old. The numbers obviously took a dip playing for the Chicago Blackhawks. Everyone not named Alex DeBrincat's probably did. But I don't know, again, if it's the right time. Left shot, but can play both sides. He is that defensive defenseman. But again, if this was in his prime, like 26, 27, 28-year-old Calvin de Haan, I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
It just feels like the remaining free agents, it's kind of like you would be paying for what they used to do versus what they can do going forward.
Yeah, and also I just looked at Johnny Boychuk's EP. I don't know why I thought he played in Germany. He did play in Austria in 2012, but he's been in the NHL ever since. So that's a weird thing.
Maybe you're thinking of Zach Boychuk? Social media
maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so I don't know why my brain went there. We're on Calvin de Haan now, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, that is interesting because when we first brought it up, Ross, I was like, oh, man, he's been in the minuses for the last couple of years for a defensive defenseman. That's
minus 37 in the last 105 games.
But like you mentioned, Chicago has been a dumpster fire in those years. So what can you really do here? But again, I'll pose the question. Do you see Calvin de Haan as a major upgrade on Travis Hamonic?
No.
Yeah. He might be a minor upgrade, but you're not like, if we're not really going to improve on that, then what's the point?
I mean,
you just mentioned, Ross, you want space for Lassie and or JVD to be ready.
Not and. Or.
Okay. Or.
One.
So bringing in a guy that's just as good as the guys you already have, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Eric Brannstrom's the wild card here because we don't really know what we have with him, but at the same time, his trade value is so damn low. There's no sense in moving him. You might as well try to squeeze a little bit more out of him in a different type of role.
I mean, he still needs the contract. He's the only defenseman right now on the team without one.
And he's under team control, and you could keep him for cheap. So,
yeah, Branny is certainly the wild card in all this. Because
time.
what if Brannstrom comes into camp, close your eyes, maybe have a couple Z's come out, and then just start thinking about Eric Brannstrom coming into camp and just taking hold of a top 4 job.
But I don't even think he needs to do that. He just needs to prove he can find a way to be a useful NHLer for DJ Smith. I think that's where it's at. How can you show DJ? You don't have to be a top dog, but where can you provide value for DJ Smith right now? And I don't think he's found a spot where he can do that.
No, because how many games do you think Eric Brannstrom's played in his NHL career?
110.
Close. 116.
Okay, yeah, that was close there. Yep.
That's a lot of games. 71 penalty minutes, 31 points.
But again, I'll reference, he hasn't had a full season. He's been up, down, shortened seasons, put in spots.
Well, he got a great, before the COVID pause, he got a 31 game sample.
Yeah, and that's a good sample, but you need a full season as a young defenseman to really go through the ebbs and flows. I think, at least.
I don't know if I can handle one more freak out when he's the 7th defenseman on the outside looking in.
I don't think Sens fans are at that point where they're freaking out about it now. Because it was enough sample size to give him a good opportunity. But I think we need to change our expectations for Brannstrom now, and that's what it's about.
Okay, because it's funny, we're talking about adding a defenseman and the free agent market, not a whole lot there, as we just discussed. But like the Senators have 8 defensemen right now signed on, I shouldn't say one way because Jake Sanderson's on a 2-way, but that kid's not playing in the AHL. He's never going to even have to know where Belleville is on a map, let alone have to play there. So Shabbat, Sanderson, Holden, Zub, Brannstrom, Hamonic, and Zaitsev. So that's 7. And Zaitsev is kind of looking at the odd man out. No spoilers, but he's dead last on our organizational value rankings.
Ross, come on.
No spoilers.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely fair. Yeah.
And did I miss someone there, or did I not?
I think you got them all there.
All right, so there's 7 guys signed on the NHL side of the organization with Zaitsev.
Yeah.
So any addition you would think would mean a subtraction when it comes to a Brannstrom being involved in a trade. Is that what you think?
I think so. Yeah, because if you could, again, the trade value for Brannstrom is so low right now. But if you did move Brannstrom in that deal or in a deal, everyone can just slot down one, right? Like you can keep Zub with Sanderson, and then Hamonic just goes down to the third pair. Like a Hamonic Holden pair as your third pair would be great. Like that's ideal. Like that's perfect. So you just need a guy that can play comfortably with Thomas Chabot now.
Yeah, well, what really makes the Holden contract look good, and not only the fact that he took a $400,000 pay cut off his last deal, but the fact that he also has the ability to play with Zub. We saw that a lot last year.
Yep.
And it would be easy if Sanderson happens to be struggling in a game that you can just kind of flip those two real quick. And just be like, all right, Holden, play a couple chips with Zub. You got it.
And the reason Holden is so valuable right now, Ross, is right now I'm looking at the penalty killing time for the Senators. Nick Holden played 243 minutes on the penalty kill. Next up was Nikita Zaitsev with 175. Next up was Connor Brown with 168. So let's say we're taking out Zaitsev and Brown. Now there's a lot of penalty kill minutes that still need to be held down, and Nick Holden is the leader here, so he's going to be relied upon heavily here. So I think definitely the value of Nick Holden is pretty strong, and he's such a locker room guy. Like I think he feeds into the culture here, and the boys love him.
Second on the Ottawa Senators in playoff games in his career, right after Claude Giroux. And by right after, I mean Holden has 55 and Giroux has 95. If you take out Holden, the entire roster combined doesn't even have as many playoff games as...
Oh, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah, like Austin Watson's obviously got some from his time with Nashville, but yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot of playoff experience on this Ottawa Senators roster. Just makes it that much more great that Claude Giroux decided to come home. We're going to keep the vibes rolling tomorrow here on Locked On Senators, and I'm not going to tease an interview. I'm not going to do it, Pillsy.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I'm not teasing an interview that we might have tomorrow. I'm not doing it. Any final thoughts, Pillsy, before we go?
No, not too much. We're in the dog days now, right? The draft's over, the big free agent week, excitement is over. All the biggest RFA for the Sens is over. So hopefully Pierre Dorion can do us a favor and sprinkle in these RFA signings spread out so that
one by one.
we have some content to work with here. But I guess when is arbitration? We have plenty of content. But when's the arbitration date?
Between July 27th and August 11th. Hey, maybe tomorrow or Friday we'll touch on the Matthew Tkachuk saga, because that is turning into what I dreaded the Senators Brady Tkachuk negotiation would turn into. But it really does feel like that in Calgary. So we'll get into that later on this week. And then we also next week have to look forward to Team USA World Junior Camp. If you missed our episode with Tyler Boucher on Monday, go check that out right now. Absolute beauty. Can't wait to see what's next for him next week with Team USA. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.